future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
She's passionate about telling stories of amazing women who are rocking the world and empowering women to live, love, and thrive. Here's your host, Catherine Gray.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Live, Love, Thrive kickoff. Here we are for our Women's Empowerment Hour, where every week we're going to bring you amazing women's stories to motivate you and encourage you to live your own highest self. And so today we have incredible 360 Karma women. That's what I call them, because our 360 Karma community is all about women's empowerment. 360karma.com is the producer of this show, and basically we produce platforms like this one to encourage women to help each other. We don't need to compete with one another. We need to really, help each other out, kind of like an old boys club, but I know we don't want to call it the old girls club, so I refer to it as the bold girls club. And I think by us helping each other, we can move into more positions of influence and have more women at the table. And won't that make the world a better place? You know, it's tough times here in the world, and we need to put our focus on all the positive things that are happening. And so I have two incredible women here today that I want to showcase their stories and share them with you. And so happy to have them here. That would be Juliet Huck, who is the author of The Equation of Persuasion, and Nik Kacy, a groundbreaking entrepreneur who will be on later in the show. So, welcome, Juliet Huck.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So happy to have you with us.
Thank you, thank you.
You are an incredible role model to women. I know you have worked on some of the highest profile cases out there, like the Enron case, Scott Peterson, Koby Bryant. Tell my audience, how did you get involved in such high-profile cases, and what exactly do you do for them? And the big question that everyone always asks me about you, which side were you on?
That's a couple loaded questions there.
Okay.
But I got into the business actually quite a while ago, almost 20 years ago. And I started to see where there was a need for storytelling and people to connect with very complicated subject matters. And over time, I started to see where this was a model that started forming itself, which I call the Equation of Persuasion. Mm-hmm. And that's the formula that you have to be able to start relating to one another, and then you also have to have retention levels that have to, be risen. Mm-hmm. So how do we do that? And so when I got into some of these large cases, I worked like on the Enron litigation. It wasn't just about accounting; it was about principles of lying and cheating, and people could relate to that much easier than the accounting principles because we're not accountants, right?
Right.
Not very many people were going to be accountants sitting on that jury.
So what you're doing is really groundbreaking, because when you approach these cases, you were approaching them in a different way than anyone else had.
Exactly.
So they were informing people and giving facts, where you, and I've read your book, and I know the Equation of Persuasion is really something that anybody could use for any business that they have.
Right.
And that is, you teach about, instead of informing people, you persuade people.
Right.
What exactly does that mean?
Well, I define persuasion as a directed action. And one of the best examples I use quite often is Al Gore's movie, The Inconvenient Truth. Mm-hmm. The Inconvenient Truth was a powerful movie, but it didn't direct us to do anything differently.
Right.
So what happened was we walked out of the movie theater not quite sure knowing what to do. Right. Of course, today we have some, transition of, electric cars and new light bulbs and things, but we didn't have the movement. Right. Because no one, was directed exactly to what we can do to fix the problem.
Yeah, I did feel that way when I saw that movie. I thought, wow, this is powerful, but what are we going to do to change it?
Yeah, right. We know we're now informed.
Yeah.
That's a call to action, which to inform someone is a call or to invite. Right. But to persuade someone is to direct them to what you need them to finish the job to do.
And so that's why this applies to any business.
It applies to any business.
In most businesses, people are informing you or selling you. Right. And instead, they should be persuading you and directing you, right?
And the way to do that is like through the formula. You really have to get out of your own shoes and get in the shoes shoes of your decision maker. And it's kind of where we are in the world today with race relations and things. We don't have a lot of empathy for each other.
Right.
We're starting with our own beliefs first instead of looking into the eyes of the person who we want to be with and have them make a decision that something we may need.
Right.
So we're not looking at compassion
and that's a very good point.
and empathy.
What you're saying is that, in the world there's all this tension right now.
Right.
And the way for us to have that subside is encouraging people to step in other people's shoes.
Exactly.
So if you're not African American, or you're not gay, or you're not Jewish, or whatever it is, well, put yourself in that person's shoes and how you'd feel, and
and that's exactly what I do.
Going to make the world better, right?
That's exactly what I do for a job. I basically I work around the empathetic way of saying I don't understand, so help me to understand.
So give me, like, for instance, on the Enron case, which side were you on?
I was on the Department of Justice side.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And so I was actually recommended and referred to that case.
Right.
Based on
so they basically won because of you.
Well, no, I don't say that.
Well, you had a big part in it.
Yeah, I definitely was very, very grateful to be part of that. And
Right.
the Department of Justice was extremely collaborative. That was also a great part because when you're collaborating with each other, you win.
Yeah.
And this is what I keep trying to tell people is if we could just get out of our own shoes and think everything has to be the way we want it to be.
Right.
And we can do it as a group, as a collective.
Yeah.
That's when movement happens and that's when persuasion happens.
Right.
And so again, I go back to what's happening in our world today. If we could just stop for a minute, and I don't understand what it's like to be black, but I have a lot of very beautiful African American friends that I've learned through their culture through them.
Yeah.
So there doesn't become this divide; it becomes a learning process.
Right.
And now I have appreciation and a great gratitude for how different cultures want to live.
Right.
And so that's where, to me, persuasion has to start right there.
Right. Because you can't possibly know what someone else is going through without stepping into their shoes.
Right.
And I don't know why people aren't willing to do that, but it certainly definitely would help this tension that's going on in the world today. But it starts with us.
It starts with us.
And I'm glad that we're talking about this today.
Well, thank you.
So our
It's great.
listeners can think about, hey, am I stepping into other people's shoes?
Right.
The other cases that you've worked on, Koby Bryant and Scott Peterson, what side were you on and what happened
I was on
there?
the prosecution side on the Koby case, and I was on the defense side for Scott Peterson's case,
Okay.
which was a very intense part of my life, time in my life, because there was so much around the emotional side to that. A lot of people have stepped in and say, how could you do that? And again, everybody has the right to a fair story. I mean, no matter what happens, our system is the right that you get to tell your story. And then how do you understand what this story means, and how do you can you relate to this story? So the reason that you get a tide of emotion is because more people can relate to something emotionally.
Right.
And when that emotion starts to move, that's when you get that tide, also persuasion, because there's an emotional component to that. So it was a very emotional case. But I've also helped secure billions of dollars for large corporations. And, I have small cases, I have large cases. I just love to be able to help, people that don't understand really complicated things like the law, like science. I have the opportunity to go in and try to explain that through visual and through story development, but to bring them along on a path that really allows them to understand things in a very simple way.
So just so people understand what you do, you actually do the research and prepare like what the attorneys will take to the table as the argument or the
Right.
information that
Right.
they need
Well,
to.
let's look at it as evidence, basically.
Yeah.
So what happens
Evidence,
is,
yeah.
right, you have evidence,
Okay.
and you have to use the evidence. Everything has to be based on the evidence.
Right.
But when you have evidence that's so complicated, like let's say DNA,
Yeah.
for somebody to sit down and understand DNA in an hour,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So these scientists go to school for years and years. So my job is to simplify DNA so they can understand how it works enough so that when they go to make the decision, we lead them down the path to say, this is why it works this way.
So you tell the attorney, here's the way you position it to the jury.
And present it.
And present
and
it.
how it's presented.
Right.
And then they come back to me, and then we collaborate. Again, it's a very collaborative process.
Yeah.
And then we get on whiteboards, and we draw it out, and we see what it starts to look like based on all of the evidence. Everything has to be based on evidence.
How did you know that you had that gift to be able to see this in a different way and help these attorneys make those cases?
Well, when I was younger, I knew I didn't fit into my classroom. I did not fit into my classroom at all. And so what happened was I was left-handed back of the class kind of thing. And I was an artist as a kid. And most of my siblings are as well. And so I never really knew how to learn through an auditory setting. So when I was younger, I was always drawing, and but I was never doing well in school. So I was told from my high school guidance counselor not to go to college. Wasn't sure I'd make it. I was told by my college they weren't sure I was going to make it in graphic design. And then I got into this business, and I started drawing out scientific methodologies that I was learning stuff in like quick
and then you thought
ways.
if you could learn it easier, then other people could.
Right. And if I could do it through visual format. So the book basically came down to, my intention with the book was, as a kid, I was always frustrated with, I have to read first and look second. And I never could comprehend what I was doing, so I just got frustrated.
Yeah.
My book, I wanted to look first and then read.
Oh my gosh, I so relate to that.
So
I have to see something
and
first.
See people.
Reading makes no sense.
Exactly.
I have to see it first.
And you'd be surprised at the percentage of people that are like this,
right.
that we don't even know it sometimes. So I brought that philosophy in and my advertising background into the courtroom to say, look, this is how I think help people retain information.
Yeah.
We need to build relationships. You have to build the trust with people when you're going to be in front of them like that. And those parts of the formula have to all come together in order to hit persuasion. So It's been a fascinating trip.
Right.
For sure.
So I want to know, we're going to talk about, I want to know about your speaking gig first, about what is it?
The Only Woman in the Room.
The Only Woman in the Room, which I think is a good play on the Enron documentary, The Smartest Guy in the Room. Right. And I'm just going to call you the smartest girl in the room.
Okay. It didn't really come from that, but that's a good connection.
Yeah.
Right?
And I wanted you to tell our listeners about, I know you speak on this topic that is a takeaway for them today.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about.
Well, especially in my business, and I think there's a lot of businesses out there, we are sometimes the only woman sitting in the room. And I go back to exactly how I have my formula. I have to understand who those men are in the room.
Right.
And there's, it's very interesting when you look at the two things that are very different. Women, sensitive, emotional, men, logical. The one thing we can always count on, the things we all need, is love, respect, compassion. And
whether you're a man or a woman.
Whether you're a man or a woman. And so when you can actually show that to a man and they know that you respect them, they will start to break that wall down. And I've always believed that to go in and be really aggressive and that type of thing never is going to work, because they're going to take their stand, we're going to take our stand, and we're not getting this, instead of saying, why aren't we getting this? Help me understand why you are making that decision, and how can you help me?
And this is my very point, too, is that we need to have more women at the table.
Yes.
More CEOs, more senators, congressmen, business owners that are women, because we need to have a female perspective at each table.
Exactly.
Because it gives it a balance.
Yes.
And like you said, each one brings something different to the table. And if you have both components at the table, you're going to have more success, which means the world's going to be a better place in every capacity.
Right. More balanced.
Yeah, more
and
balanced.
I think that's part of the issue, is that not having, we've been, pushed aside so many times that you have to have the confidence walking into there. And a lot of that is having the confidence within yourself, that if somebody comes back and says to you as an aggressive man and says no, that you just sit back and say, okay, and not fight it, but find a way to work together. This is where I think
come in another door.
We come in another door, but we come in based on their shoes, right? We learn about them. We come back, and I do that with all my clients. I learn about them. I understand where they went to school, where they're from. They're a little bit about their family and that type of thing, so that I can actually have a better understanding.
And that goes back to your book. I notice in your book you talk about know who you're talking to, and that's how you can relate to them.
Yes.
And that's how you persuade someone, is by relating to them.
Right. That's the first step.
If someone feels like you get them.
Yes. And they know that you've taken the time and you care.
Yeah.
You're not doing that in a way to manipulate. You're doing that in a sincere way.
Right.
Because to connect. Because the thing that people say to me sometimes, well, isn't that manipulating? It's like, no, that's a bad intent. When you have a good intention to get to know this person and respect them, that is a completely different line down the road.
Right.
And so what I always say is stop and take the time.
Right.
What happens if you ask this person who you're bucking heads with, what do you do on the afternoons of Saturday afternoon? What do you do on Sundays with your kids or your family? And get to know them. They're going to respect that you actually care.
Right.
And to me, that is the first step. That is the first step. And again, we're seeing it on a day-to-day basis, just in race relations and everything else.
Right.
So it's been really hard for me to sit back and watch when all of a sudden I hear someone says, oh, Newt Gingrich says, oh, we need to think about what the other person says. It's like, well, don't we already know that?
Right,
but we don't know that. That's the mixed message.
Right.
That
and
it's
that's
very
kind of
simple.
a male perspective.
Right.
But this is exactly what I've been saying is that, I just think, the world would be a better place if we just try to get to know each other and be real with each other and really care about other people and really have an interest in other people.
Right.
And I do think, that is the key. And I want the show to, have that messaging that, this is people, our viewers should understand that being your authentic self is the best, happiest place anybody could be, and then you'll relate to other people because you'll take a sincere interest in them, and that's I think what you're saying.
And I'm saying that we don't have to fit into that world.
Yeah,
I see a lot of women that want to fit into that world
rather than
rather than be themselves. I mean, it's a great point you're making because we want to fit in, so we have to be that instead of being our authentic selves. And
in other words, women that try to act like a man or be like a man, and then they call her whatever, and and she wants to just be a woman. I've noticed this year as Hillary's running, I know she used to disown being a woman, and now she's owning being a woman.
Right.
And I think that's an important message to little girls coming up is that you don't have to want to be something you're not to try to be in a position you want to be in.
Exactly.
Everyone should have that fair shot, man or woman, and everyone should be at the top of the tree, whether it be CEO or senator or president or whatever. Right. That we need women in those positions in order to give a balance to the world.
Yeah, and I mean, I learned that at a very young age because I grew up on a farm. Yeah. And my dad put me on the tractor over the boys. So I got that opportunity from my father. I don't even think he knew it, but I didn't have to, of course I had to earn that.
Right.
But I didn't have to be something I wasn't to sit there.
And that message to you as a kid was, I can do anything. And it's
anything.
not like there's a girl thing and a boy thing, but there's this thing, riding a tractor, and it's for a person.
Yeah, it's for a person, and it's an honor. It's something you work towards. And that became this like badge of honor for me to be like, okay, my brothers are down there and I'm up here. So it was kind of that moment where you're like, wow, I actually got to do this, right? So I did learn that from a very young age from both my parents. And, they're very, go out and work and work hard, but just be nice to people and be caring and be empathetic and stop and just like who's in front of you versus running over
and
people.
You're a very strong woman. I mean, very smart, very strong-minded woman, and obviously very successful. But it's nice that you also have that real soft side, down to earth, and that you're just living proof that the two can coexist.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice of you to say. Because that's what I believe. It's one of those things that we can be strong. Yeah. We can be very strong, and we can have an opinion, and we can be upset, and we can get angry. Yeah. But we can also be more empathetic because we do have that emotional side to balance. So if I think women would balance those two sides more, we would have a little bit better success in that way to say, okay, I can do this. Right. I don't have to fit into that.
Not being afraid to be strong and not being afraid to be feminine. Yeah.
That's one of
And
exactly.
the other thing I want to talk about is we're going to be looking at a commercial that's put out by Budweiser. It's comical, but very poignant about women and equal pay. Right. And I want to know your opinion on how do we use this persuasiveness in our culture to do something about equal pay, because I'm a big believer in let's not talk about the problems, let's talk about the solutions. And you're the ideal person to talk about, well, what is the solution? How do we fix that? I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time, but how do we actually change it?
Well, this commercial is perfect for that because, as we were talking a little bit earlier, the persuasive moment in that commercial is the second that Seth actually relates to what Amy's saying. Yes. So what happens is she's not just informing him, but all of a sudden he's like, what? He hasn't stopped to really connect with that until that moment. And then what does he do? He calls his mom. And that's so great because that persuasive moment is right there when all of a sudden he can relate to what she's saying, and then he feels bad for his mother.
Right.
That's where persuasion comes in. These are the places where we can open those small doors of just saying, hey, did you know this? Do you know how this affects you? You know, do I go to my brother?
It's kind of like he stood in her shoes, like you're saying.
Exactly. Exactly the beginning point. He all of a sudden stood in the shoes, and she stood in enough to tell him, here's where it is, and here's how it affects you. It affects your family. It affects your mother. It's like me. Have I ever sat down and had a difference of conversation with my brother on dry cleaning? No.
Right.
But if he really added it up
and
then saw what his wife is paying for dry cleaning and what he's paying for dry cleaning, he now can relate to, wow, why is this so different?
Right. So we're going to roll that soon. Exactly what you're saying, and the audience is going to get to hear it here in a minute, which is that Seth Rogen is in it with Amy Schumer, and they're talking about how women get paid less but pay more for products like dry cleaning and shampoo and hair and all sorts of things. And Seth has this epiphany, right, that oh my gosh, what do you mean you get paid less? Like he didn't know. He didn't know that, that we get paid less and pay more for products.
What a
and
great
now
line.
he relates it to his own mom.
Right.
And then, you'll hear the end of it. But basically, he comes to this realization that, hey, wait a minute, this isn't fair, especially if it affects my mother.
Well, and the epiphany that I always say too is when you have led somebody down a path that they don't have to make a decision.
Yeah.
The epiphany is the decision.
Right.
It's not a yes or no.
Right.
That's why I always say don't ask people a yes or no question because you may have 50% chance of losing what you want to get.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So what I always tell women is like if you want an answer, don't ask yes, can I, ask for permission. Don't go into those arenas. Go into a place where you're actually educating this person on something like Amy Schumer does.
Right.
And the epiphany is like, I have to do something about it now.
Right.
He said yes without saying yes.
Right.
And that was what's beautiful about this commercial.
Right.
And he could relate to it. It's totally the formula that's in my book, 100%.
Right.
So I was excited to see
Maybe
that.
they read your book.
Well, I was excited to see it. I jumped up and I was like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. He could totally connect.
Where can people find you at Juliet Huck Group?
Actually, the huckgroup.com.
Huckgroup.com, which I think is on the screen.
It's on the screen.
Yep.
And then
H-U-C-K.
And then I also have the Academy Persuasion blogspot.com.
Okay.
And
people can get your book on Amazon?
No, they can actually get that on the huckgroup.com.
On the Huck Group, and it's called the Equation of Persuasion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you've traveled all over the country with your book tour, yes?
Yep, we've done that. We've done 30 cities with the radio tour for it, and it's really been a great learning tool for people that want to reference, how to present information, how to develop persuasive stories, how to get how color works in our lives to persuade. So it's really extensive in that way. That's, and I talk about time, how timelines sometimes need to be presented in specific ways so that people understand why time can be persuasive.
Right.
So it's a lot of different elements. Like I said, it's 20 years of my life that I've seen over the years, and from Alaska to Hawaii to Florida to New York, I've been in so many different types of cases, and I just felt like it's time for me to pass on this knowledge, and hopefully I can help somebody out there that's listening.
Great. And one word of advice to women?
Word of advice?
And their empowerment?
Be yourself.
Be yourself. I love that advice.
And I say be yourself, and there's nothing like the power of femininity. There really is a power behind that, and it's a way to use it in not a physical or sexual way, but in a mental way, that you can really use your femininity to be strong, to be soft, to be empathetic, to be compassionate, and just be yourself.
Awesome.
Yeah,
love
great.
that advice.
Thank you. That's great.
So let's take a look at that Bud commercial. If you haven't seen it yet, I think you're going to enjoy it. It's funny, but it's poignant. Let's roll it.
Bud Light Party here to discuss equal pay.
Women don't get paid as much as men, and that is wrong.
And we have to pay more for the same stuff.
What?
Yeah, cars,
What?
dry cleaning,
What?
shampoo.
What? You pay more but get paid less? That is double wrong. I'm calling everyone I know, and I'm telling them about this. This has got to stop.
Bud Light proudly supports equal pay. That's why Bud Light costs the same no matter if you're a dude or a lady.
Yeah, Mom, you have to pay more for a car than Dad. No one treats my mom like this.
The Live, Love, Thrive radio show is produced by 360karma.com. Are you a 360 Karma woman? If so, spread the word. Be sure to follow us on social media at 360 Karma Women on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please like us and share us with family and friends. This is the Year of the Woman, and we are stronger together. The Live, Love, Thrive program is brought to you in part by Honda of Los Angeles, supporting the equality and empowerment of women.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that Bud commercial. Was that cool or what? I think we need to talk about that. And I am here with my next guest, Nik Kacy, who is a groundbreaking entrepreneur in the shoe industry. Welcome, Nik Kacy.
Thank you.
How are you?
Great, thank you.
Good. I just think you're one of the coolest people I know. We were just talking about people being their authentic self, and you are really the epitome of that. And I've learned a lot from you, and I want my audience to be educated about people that are born, like yourself, born a woman, but feeling boyish, and you're in that trans umbrella, but you like to refer to it more as like unisex, like your products. And that people, this is a conversation you and I have had, is that people shouldn't be put in a box, and neither should products like shoes and clothing and people. They don't need to be, considered one side or the other. Some people are just gender neutral, and they don't feel like. I know you've said to me, I'm not a he or a she, but I'm not neither, and I am both. Is that right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
basically like a very gray area, and it's a very large spectrum, right?
Right.
So in terms of identity, there's this gigantic spectrum of how people are able to identify.
Right.
And whether you feel like you're a cisgendered female, which means you were a female born as a female, or you're trans female, which is you were born as a male, but inside you're a female,
Right.
and then you transition. So for me, is I was born as a female with gender parts that are female, but my inner self felt very much like a male for my whole life.
Right.
But as I grew older and matured and being part of the lesbian community and just learning to embrace that side of me, when I did transition and had top surgery and hysterectomy and all these things to gain a greater authentic self, I also realized that part of that authenticity was not just disregarding or throwing away, the 30-something years of this female identity that I had to learn to embrace.
Right.
Right. And so that now my complete self is actually both sides, and it's all sides. And so I think that
That's a beautiful thing.
exactly, and now that we're all able to come to terms with understanding that there's not necessarily this binary for genders, that you don't have to be one or the other, right?
Right, and because of that, you've decided to create these unisex products. And so speaking of unisex, I think one of the most interesting things coming off that commercial is that we should talk about how jobs should be unisex.
Right.
So a CEO should be obviously a job for a man or a woman, and even an auto mechanic should be a job for a man or a woman, or any job.
Right.
And so why we've put these gender identities on jobs or pay is really absurd when we think about it. And so a job should just be a job, and whether a man has it or a woman has it, the job should pay the same.
Right.
And the fact that it doesn't is just insane. And it's definitely something that we have to take a look at. And I was saying to Juliet Huck, how do we change the conversation, and what do we do to move this forward rather than just talk about it? And I think what you're doing is helping change that, because when we talk about creating products that are for everyone, it does flow over into us saying, and jobs should be for everyone, and we shouldn't make them one or the other, male or female job, male or female products. And one thing that I found interesting that you told me that when we were speaking earlier is that sometimes people think you're a woman, and 50% of the time, and 50% of the time they think you're a man. And so that you get this really unique perspective of how you're treated differently when they think you're a woman than when they think you're a man. And I find that fascinating because most women wouldn't know that they're treated differently. And then when you get the treatment as being a male, you realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm giving some liberties that I wasn't being given thought of as a woman. And that is fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, we just touched on so many things right now in terms of gender identity and how that translates to how do we change the future for a more positive future where we look at both people and products from a genderless perspective, right? So I'm making the shoes, and right now there's a lot of different companies that are coming out with whether it's agender or unisex clothing, or not, clothing for the non-gender binary. There's a lot of movement in terms of how do we create products that are just for people.
Yes.
For human beings, right?
Right.
It's not like you have to be a woman to wear it or a man, Like for years, looking for shoes, I love the style of masculine shoes, but I couldn't find them in my size.
Right.
Because in the fashion industry, they made clothes.
This is what a woman's shoe's supposed to look like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, so men should only wear these sizes and women can only wear these sizes. And then they forget about the people maybe who had larger feet or smaller feet,
Right.
regardless of gender. So
Right.
my purpose, my mission is that I'm going to create products, starting with shoes.
Right.
And then later, like,
I think we're showing some of your shoes on the screen
cool.
so that people can see what you're talking about.
Yeah, but the stuff is to allow all people to wear it, so that if they
Right.
like the style,
Yes.
it doesn't matter what their identity or their gender is. They should be able to wear something.
Correct. And you started off with men's style shoes, but in sizes for women as well. And now,
Right, but the fact that you just said that
Yes.
already
Oh,
is
gosh,
genderizing.
There,
right?
there I go.
Yes.
Okay, so it's really hard to break the
right,
habit.
and then
Yeah.
so that's why we have to try to change people's the way they think, the process,
Yes.
right? So like these shoes are just
And I'm a perfect example
genderless
of that.
shoes,
Yeah,
right?
genderless shoes.
So the sizing is a universal genderless sizing.
Right.
So
But where I was going with that is
yeah.
then you're going to be making
high heels.
high heels. I won't say
Same
women's
size
shoes.
range, yeah.
High heels, like from size 6 to
Yeah, even smaller. Yeah,
12 or whatever.
To men's, like
Yeah.
normally it would be a men's 14, but like
14.
I use a genderless sizing, which is the European sizing. So that's from 34 to 47.
And speaking of Europe, I think Europe's a little further ahead than we are. I noticed there's I was reading that there's a place in London called Selfridges, and 3 floors of this department store now in London has genderless clothes. They call them unisex. And so a man or a woman can go to any of these floors, look at any of their products, apparel, shoes, whatever, and they're not considered for either. They're products for people.
Well,
And then
yeah.
you come in and they have them in all sizes and whatnot. So whether you're a man, woman, or whatever, however you identify, those products are for anyone.
Right. I mean, what
Yeah.
made them, pioneers in doing this is that instead of having a traditionally women's department and a men's department, they just had departments. So they had
Yes.
an agender department so that it was three
Yeah.
full floors where you can go in and not feel like you had to be part of one gender or the other.
Right.
Or, even
Because it
going
could be
to-
awkward to
exactly.
walk into
Exactly.
the other
And,
one's
I mean,
department.
That's
Yeah.
my whole life story, right? Like every
Yes.
time I went to go buy a shirt or a blazer, like going to the men's department, they'd be like, you're in the wrong section.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and so we're trying to basically let's change everyone, the whole world. Let's change their perspective so that like everything is not about gender.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's why I wanted to have this discussion
Yeah.
because we have to educate people.
Absolutely,
and they
yeah.
have to understand why it's important.
Right.
I think we have to get to the why, and this department store is one stepping stone toward that. And I read that probably in the next 10 years we're going to see a lot more of genderless clothing, or not, what is it, non-gender specific clothing,
Right.
and
Or
and
agender,
shoes
yeah.
and agender.
I mean, the goal is that eventually one day we are just going to look at each other as people, right? And be
Yeah.
like, oh, that's a great jacket.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't need to be like
Right. It is a
any
great jacket,
yeah, right?
isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly. Yeah. So I mean, like,
Yeah.
when you look at your glasses, like those are not necessarily genderized, right?
Right.
And I think that's one small step, right? Sneakers
Yeah.
are slowly moving towards being non-gendered as well.
Right.
You know, even watches. I think women.
And
are
let's
starting
explain to
watches that are
people
different.
why it's important, because maybe somebody listening or watching doesn't understand why it's important.
Well,
so
I
you
mean, you brought up a very good point about equal pay, right? Like, so that was one of the biggest reasons why it's important, is because if we can change everyone's perspective about how gender does not equate to, you know, talent, skills, expertise, you know,
Right.
style, like all of these things,
Right.
then you're going to start seeing the value,
Right.
right? So that,
So the person walks in the door for the job.
Exactly.
It's not, is this man right for the
Right.
job, or should we hire a woman? It's, is this person right for the job?
Exactly, yeah.
Right. And that's why it's important.
yeah. I
One
mean,
of the
like,
reasons, yeah.
when we were having our conversation previously, like I was telling you about how, you know, I was reading an article about how a transgendered male started talking about his experience after he transitioned and came out as male. Then all of a sudden he started getting promotions and started getting paid more and got, you know,
Yeah.
noticed for like the more important jobs, the executive jobs.
Right.
And-
And you said you've been treated differently.
Oh,
We
yeah,
didn't
totally.
address that really.
Yeah, I mean, even when I go out and I go, like, you know, to the grocery store, I'm on a daily basis, you know, throughout the day, I can be called sir and ma'am throughout the day. So
Right.
I'm like still dressed in the same way, but some people will think I'm one way and some people will think I'm another. And it doesn't necessarily bother me, but I just think it's interesting how they treat me differently.
Yeah.
So when I get sir'd a lot, I notice how I do get a lot of that male privilege.
Yeah.
Whereas when I get ma'amed, I also get the female privilege. You know, it's very interesting because, you know, maybe they'll hold my door.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like
Right.
when I get thought of as a sir, they just kind of like expect me to hold the door, you know?
Right. It's very traditional
yeah,
in our
it's
culture.
very, yeah.
Right.
And there's this like traditional gender binary of like how you're supposed to behave.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's like, we should all be holding each other's doors, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, at the end of the day, we're all a spiritual being, and this is
Exactly.
just a shell case,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
To humanize us. And I think if a man or woman is listening and thinking, well, how does this apply to me? The bottom line is every person has this degree of feminine and masculine in them. Right. Whether you're a man or a woman or, you know, whatever, trans or however you're feeling, every person has a degree of masculine and feminine within them. And I think as people get older and evolve, they tend to tap into more of realizing that they really do have both within them. And that's why it's important. The first conversation with Juliet Huck is about standing in other people's shoes to have empathy.
Right.
And that's basically what this conversation is about for trans people. It's stepping into their shoes and understanding, oh, I see my masculine and feminine side inside of myself is just in a different degree in them, and let me honor and respect that and have empathy for that. And let's start looking at people as people.
Exactly. And it, beyond like trans or
Yes,
like
all
all
these
of these things, it's just
labels,
like, you
yeah.
know, what if we just treat each other with respect and dignity because we're human beings?
Right.
And when I look at Catherine, I don't think female. I don't think,
Right.
you know, I just think awesome human being.
Yeah. Well, back at you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And you know, I think that that if we do that, the equal pay thing will fall into place
Exactly.
because everybody will be thinking, oh, this is a person, they're qualified, this is what the
Exactly.
job pays, no matter
Exactly.
who's in that position.
Exactly.
But I do think we need to take action. Like, I'm always a great believer, we can talk about it, but anything in history that's actually been changed took some action. Is there anything you can think of that we could be doing to move this forward, the equal pay?
Well, I think, you know, from business perspective, obviously, is like support the small business that are trying to create this kind of change through firsthand, you know,
Yes.
proactivity, right? In terms of
Speaking of that,
Yes.
your website is up, nikkacy.com. And I want to mention that I have a pair of your shoes, and I love them. I get so many
Thank
compliments.
you.
And I think that if people want to support you, they can come to your website, nikkacy.com, Nikkacy, I mean
Kacy,
and they can support you by getting a pair of shoes.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, part of the design is that, you know, when you wear them, you can kind of spread that word of like equality. So there's actually an equal symbol on the shoes.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, but you know, going back to the, you know, how do we make change for equal pays?
I want to say one thing about
Okay.
your shoes before
Okay.
we move on from
Oh
that.
yeah, keep
They're
plugging my shoes.
Yeah, they're custom made. You have
Yes.
them made overseas in
In Portugal, yeah.
They're like handmade. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
And just high quality. So it's not like, yes, you made a unisex product, but you made it like really good quality, nicely styled
Right.
product that looks amazing and feels great. So I just want to say that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and part of that reason was because for years, when you look at like female shoes made for women and shoes made for men, men's shoes were always better quality and less expensive. Whereas women's shoes, they were lesser quality because they expect women to buy shoes on a more regular basis, so they
Right.
don't need to last, and they knew that women would pay more money for it. So for me, everyone, doesn't matter who you are, you can wear my shoes. You pay the same.
Everyone pays the same.
And
I
they're
like
all
that.
high quality.
And they're all
you know,
high
so.
quality, yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So anyway, you were saying...
Yeah, proactivity in terms of like how do we make change for equal pay is like supporting, you know, your state and, you know, federal legislature that helps with that, and also every day at work, on the street, with all the people that you have interactions with. How do you change your communication style? How do you effectively promote equality through just your own behavior? I think
Right.
that's the best way to do it.
Right. That's why it's important that people let people know who they are, so that they know somebody who is gay or transgendered
Exactly.
or whatever
Visibility.
ethnicity,
Exactly,
Jewish or
yeah.
whatever, that they own it, so that they know, oh, I like that person. Oh, therefore I can identify with embracing that sensuality or that ethnicity or that religion or whatever. I think, you know, by being really authentic with who we are, that helps break down those barriers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, what's ahead for nikkacy.com? I know you have a new product line coming out.
Yes.
And you would be open, I think, to an investor if it was the right fit.
Yeah.
That somebody that really believed in your vision.
Exactly.
And gets that this is trailblazing. You're a pioneer in. I mean, that's why you were in Fortune magazine, because you were what you're doing is groundbreaking. I know when you went out to these shoe factories and said, "Hey, this is what I want to do," they said, you know, like any trailblazer, they're like, "You're crazy, you can't do
Right.
that," and you know, it wasn't easy.
Right.
Anybody who thinks starting a groundbreaking new business is easy, you know, hasn't started one.
Right.
So I really applaud what you've done and your perseverance and
Thank
your
you.
vision.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
you
I'm
left
excited.
a high-profile job at
Yeah.
Google to
It definitely was
actually
not an
pursue this.
easy decision to make, but I'm glad that I made it and that I have been, you know, received well and have a lot of support and friends and made new friends from it. You know, my first collection was called Fortune for a reason, because I really believed in spreading that fortune that, you know, we're going to make products that it's going to help everybody feel authentic. So the second collection I decided to name Destiny,
I love it.
because I felt like it is our destiny to get to that point where like we should be able to express ourselves in a way that is not, you know, limited. You know, we should be able to freely express ourselves and be our most authentic selves.
Right.
And then getting to this point of getting to the high heels, which is the ultimate goal of
Yeah.
creating a truly gender equal and gender neutral shoe line, right? So we're doing a fashion show for New York Fashion Week in September
great.
with Dapper Q, and we'll be partnering up with my brother from another mother, Sharp Suiting, who does custom tailored suits.
Great.
That
And this is all in the unisex products,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
I love that.
Gender neutral, unisex, and you know, it's been really just an interesting ride, and I've gotten to.
Oh, I think you've only just begun.
Well, yeah, so
Yeah.
I think so, and I'm hoping that, you know, it'll go on for a
I'd like
long
to see this
time.
on QVC.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see how it would
Yeah.
do. I think,
Yeah.
you know, I bet you there's a whole market out there that people aren't even aware of, but
Yeah.
they would order it from their home.
Yeah.
You know,
You think
because still
so?
people aren't, you know, necessarily out in the open with what it is that they would like. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that to be able to be ordering it from somewhere like QVC would be very cool.
I don't know.
And
I prefer like maybe like Nordstrom or like
yeah, and I was
Barney's.
going to say, then the next thing would be to be in the department stores, of course. But I know in order to ramp up for that, you need the right investor and somebody who would be already in that space that sees your incredible vision and would like to ride that wave with you and help make change. Somebody that really sees that this is going to help make the world a better place just with these products and how, like you said, it'll flow over into equal pay and things like that, because people will start seeing everything, jobs and products, as unisex.
Yeah, I mean, last year when I first started the Kickstarter campaign to raise funds, I did get some interest, from, companies or sites that wanted to carry my shoes, but I thought it was really important for me to build the brand first so that people understand like Nik Kacy is synonymous with equality, and things like that help build the brand to the sense that when it does finally get carried by another name, that it doesn't get lost in that translation,
Right. And I know you also have started calling the product gender equal, and I like that term. Gender equal.
Yeah. Because essentially that is what it is. Like gender neutral, I think sometimes is they make a male or masculine shoe in a woman's size, but the proportion is different. So it's not truly equal.
Right.
For me, it's truly equal because it's the same shoe.
Right. Right. And I think people identify more with unisex because they kind of get that.
Right. Yeah.
Which is fine.
However, I like to call it unisexy.
Unisexy, I like that. That would be you, Nick. Yeah, that's your new nickname. So, what would your advice be to our listeners? About empowering women and people, and just what steps can we take for this empowerment path?
I think the number one thing for me is just like to be honest. Right? To be honest with yourself, to be honest with everyone around you, to be visible, and to speak up for what you see is unjust.
Right. Right.
Too many people get very comfortable not speaking up because they don't want to rock the boat, they don't want to take a risk.
Or they're afraid of what other people think. I think that's the biggest thing.
Right.
And if we would all get past worrying about what other people think and do what we believe, you're going to find that most people will respect that more than you not saying what you believe. Yeah. So if they would walk through that fear, they would see that they get to the other side, and it's a much happier, more empowering place.
Exactly.
So thank you so much for being in the show.
Yeah.
I just really admire you and respect you.
Likewise.
And I wish you all the best with NikKacy.com and your shoe line, which I think is just amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be a part of this project.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, at 360karma.com, we would love to have you visit our community. We have a conference coming up in November, and every week we're going to be showcasing these awesome 360 Karma women who are just doing amazing work in the world. They're paying it forward and giving back, and like I said, it's all about women helping women and those that support us, and just make it a great day. Hugs and happiness to all, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next Wednesday at noon.
Thanks.